I would love if you could start out just with sort of the elevator pitch of what the Defiant is for anyone who might not be familiar.
Sure. So the Defiant is the go-to information source for decentralized finance. It's an information platform with a newsletter, a podcast, a YouTube channel, and a website with original reporting on DeFi. And we're also building a DeFi-specific data platform to complement that information.
And your recent funding round, congratulations, by the way,
Thank you.
that is focused on the data platform, or is that just kind of
Yeah,
for the
that's
full
right.
operation?
Well, I guess the reason why I decided to seek funding was that I realized that the opportunity for the Defiant was bigger than just a content platform. And I started thinking about it as the Bloomberg of DeFi. So this one place with very high quality news, but also very reliable and in-depth data. And so if I had decided to keep the Defiant as just a media operation, I could have probably continued to bootstrap it. But since I wanted to execute this kind of larger vision as a full-fledged kind of information company, then that's why I decided that I should seek funding and hire developers, and also just ramp up the entire team. Like I also hired journalists and video crew with the goal of professionalizing yeah, the entire uh, uh, company.
That's really interesting that you say that because it strikes me as sort of like Bloomberg in reverse, where Bloomberg started out with these tools and created kind of the media side to almost advertise them. You're sort of have done the opposite in a way where you've started with the content side first and then developed the platform. Do you see that the platform kind of as being a direct sell to your readers? Is that sort of the target audience for them? Or are you trying to branch out beyond your readership?
Um, I mean, my core audience for the data platform will be within my readers. Like I have actually been talking with my readers every day for the past 2 weeks. I set up a system to schedule kind of feedback uh, for defined users, and I've been surprised at kind of the um, uh, wide variety of people who are reading the Defiant. So it is kind of the very like hardcore DeFi trader, but it's also a newcomers to DeFi. Um, so I am kind of careful to keep a focus on kind of my core user who will also be a consumer of the data platform, but also be sure to not alienate kind of the newcomers who I think at this point we're so early in the space that I want to make sure that the Defined is kind of the place that people can land on and kind of start um, their journey in DeFi. Um, so yeah, I think um, I'll start catering to my core user, my current core user. But the idea as the whole space grows is to grow alongside with it and start expanding as well.
So I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about the origins of the Defiant. Correct me if I'm wrong. You started the Defiant in 2019, is that right?
Yeah.
So that seems like a very scary time to start a media organization, with layoffs happening at all these big publications, a lot of them closing down, even kind of new media stuff was struggling. If you look at, what was happening then and what's been happening with Gawker, or what was formerly Gawker, for example. So I'm curious about, I don't want to make you retread, all the steps of the founding story since you've laid it out very well. But I'm curious about your mindset as you were founding the Defiant? What did you think you could do differently? What made you confident that you would be able to successfully build um, this new media site when so many were struggling or failing?
So the thing, uh, to me, what I thought I was bringing into the space that was new was, like, my innovation wasn't on the media side at the time. It was on the industry. So it was simply a matter of seeing where, most of the activity and innovation and growth was happening in crypto, and that was DeFi, and also realizing that there was no very, like, real good quality on the space. Um, and also taking a bet on decentralized finance. At the time, the DeFi was even kind of smaller, and even more experimental than it is today. It was really just getting started. But I think I had been kind of long enough covering the space, and also like researching Ethereum for my book, The Infinite Machine, that I felt I had a good sense of like what was real and what was not. And to me, it was clear that DeFi was very real and it was here to stay and it would continue growing. Like, um, just the innovation that's happening is just extremely revolutionary, and I really do believe that it will replace traditional finance. So I just thought, this is a huge opportunity. I'm the right person to cover this. Like, I wrote the book on Ethereum. I was a markets reporter at Bloomberg for 8 years. Like, I know how to write about this stuff. um, and so I just saw that opportunity. Like, this is a really kind of uh, revolutionary market that's just getting started, that will continue to grow. There's nobody covering it, and I know how to cover this stuff. So it was just like it all fit together.
Right. So when you, in those early days of the Defiant, how did that first take form? Was it a newsletter at first, or was it blog posts? Like, what was sort of the first content focus for you and the project?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, important to note that at the time I didn't think that the Defiant would necessarily be my full-time job. Like, I left Bloomberg early 2018 to finish my book, and with the idea of becoming a freelance journalist. So, I thought I'd be kind of writing about tech and finance for different magazines. And when the idea of the Defiant came about, I I always thought it would, like, this newsletter would be like a side project, like something I could do kind of easily in like my afternoons or something, which would kind of complement my work as a freelancer. So yeah, it didn't start out as a business idea, like it started out as, oh, like, yeah, like I said, like, this is something really interesting, I can cover it. I'll start a newsletter, and maybe it, like, um if like it goes well, maybe I can turn on subscriptions and I can start like making some kind of additional income with this. Like, that was kind of the very kind of initial plan.
And at what point did the switch flip? When was the moment when you were like, okay, this is something that I should go all in on?
So I sent the first newsletter on June 11th, and I think it was like a combination of things. Like, on the one hand, it was about kind of the amount of work that um it was like requiring me to just put out the newsletter that I wanted to write. So something that covered the major development in the space, that was just like accurate, thoroughly reported, well written, that explained all these kind of really complicated concepts and ideas and protocols. So like that, all of that, just like being up to date with this like really fast moving, dynamic, crazy world, and understanding all this stuff, and kind of reaching out for comment whenever I didn't understand stuff, which was very often. Like all of that was taking a lot of time, and it was like while I was still finishing my book. So I was like writing my book during the day, like, and then I would spend like all evening um, writing the newsletter. And then um, I like I started the paid version of the newsletter in October. Um, Testing like to see if like people were willing to pay for this content. And then I started kind of getting subscribers. And the newsletter itself was growing pretty quickly, and I was getting really good feedback, and like people were really liking it, people were sharing it. It was growing just like very organically, with like just my Twitter and like people sharing it and subscribing that way. And then by the end of the year, like projects in this space were reaching out asking to sponsor the newsletter. So I saw like how quickly it was growing, that I could make kind of like real money with it. Like there was a subscription revenue, potential sponsorship revenue, and just kind of the amount of work it took to do it well. With kind of the backdrop I already said, which was that I did kind of 100% believe that this space would continue growing and is here to stay. So with all of that, I decided, like it's worth just going full time with the Defiant.
It seems like that was a good investment, because now that space has grown so much. Now there's things like NFTs that are the current kind of craze online, and you're starting to see places like Bloomberg or other places only just now starting to kind of devote beat writing to that. So it seems like the Defiant has gotten pretty far ahead of the curve in that sense.
Yeah, no, I'm yeah, happy to see that. And um hopefully I like I think more and more news organizations will continue covering it. Um, and I think it's great because it will kind of bring more mainstream attention. People will at least kind of uh, see that this is here. I think so many people just don't realize that this space exists, and think kind of crypto is just about buying the tokens that go up and down. But that I mean, there's just so much more to like the blockchain space now, thanks to DeFi. So yeah, hopefully the Defiant can have like um, an important place in providing information to the growing number of people who are interested in this space, because I think Bloomberg and CNBC and mainstream media can be kind of the starting point for most people. But if you really want to be up to date with what's happening, like the one story they do a month, or like even like one story they might do a week, which I think is too generous, just won't be enough to know what's going on.
You started the site in 2019, and it seems very quickly that you have expanded into all these different mediums, right? It's not just the newsletter, but there's the site, which has the blogs and articles. You have the video, and now you're launching this new sort of side of the business. So how important was it to you to get to all of those things very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a overwhelming undertaking, to be honest. But and I don't know why I do this to myself, but it felt very gradual. But then when you look back, it was like, oh my God, like all of a sudden I have like all this stuff. But it was, yeah, like the newsletter. Then I wanted to do like a weekly interview. And then, I was doing the interviews and recording them. So I was like, this should be easy enough to turn into a podcast, and I can reach a wider audience. There's so much that gets lost from an in-depth interview when it's in writing. Like sometimes you want to hear the person say those quotes. So I just thought, it's just necessary to have a podcast of these interviews that I was doing. So that kind of like naturally evolved into the podcast. Um, and then the YouTube channel came about because Robin Schmidt, who now is my head of video, he is just an extremely talented video producer who had interviewed me for a documentary he had done like I don't know, a year or two before, and he was working at Harmony blockchain project, and they wanted to reach the DeFi audience, and so he offered to produce content for like a Defiant YouTube channel in exchange for placing the Harmony logo there. So basically a sort of like sponsored thing, but instead of like me getting money from them, I would get content. So I thought that was pretty sweet, and we started the YouTube channel that way. So he was producing all of the Defiant YouTube content part-time. So we were like putting out maybe like one video a week or something when we started late, like, I don't know, when was it? Like second half of last year sometime. And so that's how the YouTube channel started. And then the website just came from, having the newsletter, the podcast, the YouTube channel, like all in these like just like separate platforms. And I wanted them all to be kind of in like one place. And I saw that's kind of when I saw that the Defined was becoming like a media company with all these different kind of media properties. And so I decided that it needed kind of a home. So made the website, and then it was just like very nice to have this other place to publish articles, because by that time I was already taking contributing pieces. So I had like a group of contributing writers, and sometimes like I just had so much content that the newsletter was becoming unwieldy. Like it was like becoming hard to read, and so I decided, it'd be nice to have like a website where some of these articles could live. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of how like each piece unfolded.
It sounds like you almost reverse engineered like the media website.
I guess, yeah. It's like I started with each separate piece and then kind of put them all together,
Right.
and then the website.
That's really interesting. So I mean, you coming from a long-time journalism background, how did that inform who to hire, who to partner with? Do you think that gave you kind of a leg up on knowing what you would need?
So my journalism background has been like has had some like benefits and and downsides. Um, the pros is that I have a very clear vision of the kind of content we should be producing. So I don't know, there's like something that's wired to how I think that just makes me like completely against any sort of like paid content,
Mhm.
um that any sort of shill, any sort of like pumping any coin, like like that, just like I can't stand it. And that's very, very different from most of the content that is in like being put out in crypto.
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of the Defiant brand and like mark in the space, and that is driven by my journalism background, which I try to instill in everyone in the company. So at the Defiant, we do actual journalism. We do objective uh, reporting. We seek out comments from both sides. We back our articles with actual data. We are not invested in anything. We're not kind of promoting our investments. We're not taking payments for our content. So the fact that I come from this background has, you know, made a big difference with other people providing information on DeFi. And it's also kind of made me, I think, has given me kind of a good eye to know who is a good writer. So with my contributors and the writers I've hired, I think I was I I made kind of I made good choices, and that was from kind of reading their work. They weren't none of them were kind of like well-known writers in the space, but from kind of the blog posts they were writing, or like their tweets, or just how they were thinking about things, I was able to kind of tell, okay, like there's like potential here. So, and so far, like on the writing side, I've made really good hires. But then like the downside is that I didn't have any business experience. So just like running a business, it's something that I'm still learning, like how to manage teams, how to organize my time, my work, uh, like also like not having technical experience means that, like, while I know exactly how I want like the data terminal to look and work, because like I was a Bloomberg terminal user for 8 years, I can't really like go in and check my developer's code. Like I can
Right.
see that it's working or not, but like, so I'll need a CTO at some point. But so yeah, there's definitely limitations to just like being a journalist founding a business with no MBA, no business experience or anything. But yeah, I think it's like learning by doing is is what I'm trying to do here.
I mentioned earlier that the Defiant would seem to be very ahead of the curve with covering decentralized finance. So I kind of want to ask about what you see as the next big thing to get ahead of, and maybe the new platform that you're developing feeds into this. I think it's very interesting, this idea that a media publication should, aside from just offering a wide variety of content that a user might be interested in listening to, that they should also offer tools or resources. I think that's a really interesting thing that I'm not seeing too many websites do. So I would love if you could talk about that, and in your own words, kind of the vision for what's the next target for the Defiant.
Yeah. So the data terminal, that's a huge next target. But I don't think that's something kind of very new or innovative that I'm doing. Like that's literally kind of what like Bloomberg's model, Reuters model, and it works great. So it's kind of why I want to do it, and just because it's something that's missing in DeFi and so needed. But the next kind of big thing that I want to work on and implement is, like I said, like I really am a believer in kind of Web3, and that the future is decentralized. Like I really believe that that will be the case because it's just better. So I think that decentralized protocols won't just take over like finance as a sector, but they'll take over many different um, uh, areas of life, including media. So that's kind of what I'm working towards. I want to be a part of the sector that I'm covering. So I'm working towards making the Defiant a more decentralized organization, and in a way that the Defiant users and readers can become owners and more active participants in the Defiant itself. So that's kind of what's next.
So you want to give the readers of the Defiant and users of the Defiant a stake in the company, more or less. That's what when you say you want it to be a decentralized organization, that's what you mean by that?
Yeah, like in a very broad sense. Yeah, I want them to have ownership, like a voice in the company, a way to produce some of the content or have a say on some of the content, and get rewarded for their engagement. So yeah, I think that's kind of the next big step, and it will be like a huge experiment, because that's really something that nobody has done so far. So I'm really excited to kind of open the door to this new age in media. I think it's, like I said, like I think every industry will interact with their users in a different way in Web3, and yeah, I think media will also be at the, yeah, will media companies will also have to join this new age. So we'll see how that can work.